With temperatures really dropping fast over the next few days, many of you are starting to wonder, is it too late to do certain things to your hive? Today, I'm going to talk about that. Hey, everybody, David Burns going to be with you today. Thanks, Beak Squad. That's what I call you guys. And appreciate you being part of my beekeeping community here on my YouTube channel. And today, we're going to talk about temperatures. You know, temperatures, understanding temperature is about as important as kind of keeping your smoker going, because there's so many things that are dependent upon temperature. A lot of you ask me questions like, can I still combine my hives, or is it too cold for that? Is it cooling off too much to do certain kind of treatments? Is it too cold? Am I too late in trying to make a split or requeening my hives? All these questions. First thing I have to say is, oh, I'm sorry. I know we all wind up waiting till the last minute and waiting until winter is just biting at our heels until we finally get everything done. I understand things happen. But it's always better to try to do things when you don't have to worry about the temperature. Try to get all your bee work done when the temperature is correct, when it's warm, it's hot outside, bees are, don't even have to think about it, right? But I understand I can be in the same boat that you're in. You still got some stuff to do, and we've got frigid cold air coming in this weekend where I live. And so can we still squeeze in a few essential things that we have to do even after our acid turns cold? Now, one of the things that really gets me excited, really gets me passionate about making these YouTube videos is I like to educate you in beekeeping. So today we're going to lay down a baseline. We're going to get two numbers out in front of you today, and that will help us understand why we can or cannot do things at certain temperatures. These two temperatures, I'm going to have to say Fahrenheit because I live in the US. You can do the calculations, or maybe I'll put it on the screen. But 65 degrees Fahrenheit, let's remember that number. That's the temperature where I really don't like to inspect our hives, because the developing pupae needs to be in an environment where they're pupating that's kind of like an incubator. They are in the capped over brood cells. Needs to be between 92, 96 degrees to help them develop into an adult bee in the pupae stage. So what we're kind of concerned about, if we open up our hives, we pull frames out at temperatures below, let's say 65 degrees, then we risk killing our brood. It's called a chilled brood, and it will die. It's just getting too cold during the developmental cycle. So you always have to think about 65 degrees. That's the temperature we need to be above, 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Need to be above that to really do an inspection. Now, I know when I say that, nothing is ever concrete. There's always a little bit of give and take on that. And especially if it's not windy, if the sun's out, bees are flying, you can always squeeze out some inspections maybe at 60. But, the other temperature that I need to tell you about, let's get this baseline established. This temperature is 50 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the temperature when bees become so cold that they begin to cluster. Now, cluster means, for those of you that are new, it means that bees are cold enough where they need to get really close to each other and snuggle together. That's what bees do all winter long. They don't hibernate. They just snuggle together, real close together, and they enjoy the warmth of the bees, their sister bees next to them. And so that's 50 degrees Fahrenheit when bees begin to cluster. Those two temperatures is all that you need to know as a beekeeper to answer the questions that you have. Let's say first you're wondering, have I waited too late to combine hives? Maybe you have 2 weak hives and 2 single deeps, and you want to use a newspaper between them and combine them. Kill the queen in one and combine them, and you go through winter with 2 deeps, 1 queen. Now, what would be the temperature that you could get by with, the coldest temperature, when you're combining hives? That's a very good question, and it really isn't a concrete magic number. But let's use our 2 baseline temperatures. 65 or above, we can pull frames out. 50 or below, bees are clustered. So now if we want to combine hives, one of the things that we don't want to see happen, we don't want our bees to be clustered. Because if we combine a deep hive body where bees are clustered because it's cold with another deep hive body where bees are clustered, how are they ever going to break through the newspaper and become one colony? they're going to remain separated because the cold temperatures are forcing them to be two separate colonies. So that's how you just simply need to use your brain. You got to think through these temperatures and just know these two numbers. So in other words, we have a little bit of variability here. You could get by combining two hives between the temperatures of 50 and 65, because if the bees aren't clustered, then they're going to be moving around and chew through the newspaper and combine or converge together as one colony. A caveat on that is if you combine your hives and it is kind of getting cooler, it's late in the year like it is now, here's the danger of that. You know how sometimes bees are all over the lip of the boxes when you put two boxes together, they get in between the boxes when you want to set them together. And guess what happens? You're just going to kill a bee or two. And wouldn't it be tragic if the queen, I know she usually doesn't get there, but I've had it happen. So what if you accidentally kill your one queen that you're wanting to combine, with another hive because she's up in between the two boxes? Sometimes stuff like that happens. Now it's too late for you to get a new queen. A second thing you need to be concerned about when combining two hives when it's a little bit late in the year or is a little bit cooler is that you do want it to be warm enough where the bees are moving around very well so they can eat through that newspaper, maybe even haul some trash outside, some of the newspaper outside, and that way they can converge together. So if it's too cold for that, they're not going to combine. It's going to take much longer. So all in all, combining hives really should be done in temperatures that are 65 and above when you can do an inspection, make better decisions. After all, you are going to have to kill one of the queens in one of the hives. And so again, 65 degrees Fahrenheit or above minimally to do that inspection. Now, I believe we can go a little bit colder when we are requeening. Let me explain that. People ask me quite often, what is the minimal temperature that I can still put a new queen in? Well, listen, you're taking a queen in a queen cage with or without attendants, and you're putting it in a queenless colony, right? That has hopefully a lot of bees in it. Now, as long as you keep your queen somewhat warm, like when she's shipped to you or you picked her up and you're going to install her maybe tomorrow, as long as you keep her in the house with you where it's 70 degrees or so, and you're not leaving her outside where it's cold, you can install that queen really at any temperature, because all they're going to be doing is chewing through the candy, removing the candy or consuming it, and releasing that queen. But here's the catcher again. Here's where 50 degrees comes in. If they're clustered, then it's possible that they're not going to be able to remove the queen because you're going to have to put that new queen you're installing in the center of the cluster for them to be able to chew through that candy. And as the temperatures get colder, the cluster gets smaller and tighter. So there's a little bit of a risk if they're not clustered in the middle of the day. Let's say it's 65 today and you install a new queen. Let's say it drops to 27 tonight. They're going to cluster. And the question is, will they cluster around that queen or desert her? You really don't know for sure. Again, it's always better to do these things when bees are not clustered. Now, what about feeding liquid sugar water? Now, before we talk about liquid feeding, let me encourage you guys to please subscribe. Oh, help me out, guys. I appreciate having you subscribing to my channel. We are just growing and growing, and I appreciate that so much. Now, let's talk about liquid feeding. Now, what about feeding liquid sugar water? What's the magic number? What's a magic temperature when you should no longer feed liquid? Well, again, simple rule of thumb is you're going to be thinking about how active my bees are. Now, you can get by with feeding bees liquid water liquid sugar water when it drops below 65 down to 50. But here's what I've found: they may still take it at 50 degrees because sometimes the cluster, the top of it might be near the liquid jar holes in your jar. But the problem is it's not going to be consume that much. It's really not going to help them that much because they are clustered. And so I have found that my bees don't like to consume sugar water from a top feeder when it gets to be 50 degrees or cooler. They will a little bit, not impressive at all. And I've just had to take it off once it reached 50 degrees Fahrenheit. That's another temperature I want to tell you about. That's when I put on my winter Be Kind candy boards. Now, as we get into discussing the application of the winter bee kinds that we make, let me encourage you guys before we jump into there. Hey, join me tonight if you're watching this on the same day I produce it. Tonight, we've got a great live stream planned at 7 o'clock Central Time. We're going to be having a fun time tonight. I've got a giveaway of one of my ultimate online beekeeping courses, so you want to be on there to try to win that. We also have an interview with our hostess, Jessica Fairfax. We're going to be talking to her a little bit tonight, getting to know her a little bit better as well. And also tonight, we're going to be allowing you guys to ask some personal questions about me or Sherry or Jessica, kind of get to know us a little bit better. We have some other surprises too. And I'm going to be teaching on some mistakes that beekeepers make that are kind of scary, that needs to be stopped. So join me tonight, 7 o'clock Central Time, and I'll look forward to seeing you. Now let's keep talking about the winter bee kind board. Now the winter bee kind boards that we make are specially designed to be of just the right consistency where the moisture from the colony itself is absorbed like a hot box or a quilt box. The candy is the material that the moisture is being absorbed into. I mean, why waste the moisture on something else? Let's put it in the sugar to make it much more edible to the bees. And so the moisture from the colony being absorbed in the candy on the winter bee kind board, now it allows the bees to consume that. Now, why do bees eat a candy board at colder temperatures when they don't eat the sugar water? There's two reasons for that. Number one, we always put the candy board right on top of the top box of your hive. Now, sometimes you may have a hive that's clustering down low. It may take them a minute to get up there where the candy board is, but they will eventually get there. Now, the other thing about this is that the candy board takes up the entire distance of the top of the hive. Like if this is a hive here that we're looking at, let's pretend this inner cover is the candy board. Look at all those frames. This candy board would go on there, and then your top cover goes on top of the candy board like that. But if we can just look, all that candy is available no matter where the cluster is. So if the cluster, I've seen my clusters get on the warmer side of the hive, maybe where the sun sets because it's warmer in the afternoon. And so the cluster may be moved over here. Well, there's still candy here. I've actually had to pick my candy boards up and turn them after they consume one side and put them back on like that. And so that's one of the reasons they do continue to consume the candy boards where they don't consume sugar water. Sugar water is often fed through my Burns feeder boards or through the inner cover hole or something like that. So there's not much material. In other words, if you're feeding through a hole here, but the cluster is way over here, they're not going to be able to consume any. Plus, the sugar water is kind of cold because it's mounted above the cluster and above the brood area. The winter bee kind board is absorbing the heat. It's absorbing the moisture. So it's something that bees are attracted to. Now let's talk about the winter bee kind board and replacing it in the winter. Many of you have bought this and purchased this. Some of you are confused. We have actually sold winter bee kinds, I think since 2008 or 9, maybe even earlier. I don't remember. But beekeepers around the country continue to consume and love our winter bee kind boards. But let me give you some quick facts about it for those of you that may be getting them for the first time. Number one, they're winter feed. We don't like to feed that in the middle of the year because we can just feed them sugar water. This is something we feed during the winter. We don't want to overfeed our bees a bunch of sugar water in the wintertime because you can't take defecating flights. And so the candy board is designed to be kind of like a slow consumption. So the bees have time to really digest the food and enjoy all the different sugar, minerals, and such. So what temperatures can you put on a winter bee kind? It doesn't matter. I have done this for over a decade. My customers have done it well over a decade. So when you take the top off your hives, let's say we don't have an inner cover, but we take the top off, remember bees are warm because they're close together in a cluster. They're not heating their hive like we heat our houses. And so all you do is take your top off, put your winter bee kind on, and put the top back on. If you want to change it, refill it yourself, then you take it off. Look at that. You did that under 15 seconds. You're not losing any heat because the bees are making heat for each other in standing close proximity of each other. And so that's important to realize. So at any temperature, you can replace your candy board, put a new one on. I do it all the time. I've done it in snowstorms. I've done it when I have been so cold. But the key, just don't have your hive open very long when you put them on or replace them. And always wear protective gear. And you may want to use a smoker because bees might still fly out even though it's pretty cold. And sometimes you have to shake them off of the old candy board as well. I really value the input from Dr. David Peck. He's a great entomologist, PhD, and I interviewed him on one of my live streams. And if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to enjoy this video on Dr. David Peck and I. Let's take a look at it right here. I'll see you over there.